This is Father Christopher Etheridge, missionary in Italy, and today is Tuesday, March 12th. Our gospel today comes from John 5, 1-16. There was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem at the sheep gate a pool called in Hebrew Bethesda, with 5 porticoes. In these lay a large number of ill, blind, lame, and crippled. One man was there who had been ill for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there, and knew that he had been ill for a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be well?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. While I am on my way, someone else gets down there before me." Jesus said to him, "Rise, take up your mat and walk." Immediately the man became well, took up his mat, and walked. Now that day was a Sabbath, so the Jews said to the man who was cured, "It is the Sabbath, and it is not lawful for you to carry your mat." He answered them, "The man who made me well told me, 'Take up your mat and walk.'" They asked him, "Who is the man who told you, 'Take it up and walk'?" The man who was healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had slipped away, since there was a crowd there. After this, Jesus found him in the temple area and said to him, "Look, you are well. Do not sin any more, so that nothing worse may happen to you." The man went and told the Jews that Jesus was the one who had made him well. Therefore the Jews began to persecute Jesus, because he did this on a Sabbath. The Gospel of the Lord. According to a recent study, the longest emergency room wait time in the U.S. is 228 minutes, or 3 hours and 48 minutes. In the midst of such a long wait as this, it is quite possible that hopelessness could set in, followed by the idea of simply giving up and going home. The wait for healing might seem more unbearable than the sickness itself. The man at the pool of Bethesda didn't wait 228 minutes, but 38 years. That is 54,720 minutes to be healed. For 38 years he was hoping that the troubled waters of Bethesda's pool near the sheep gate would heal him. Sure enough, he found healing at the pool, not from the pool or its waters, but from the Redeemer they prefigured. Looking at the details given to us by John in today's Gospel, we can discover the healing that takes place at the pool of Bethesda as a preparation for the greater healing that Jesus will enact on the cross. There are 3 particular details about the pool of Bethesda that point to Christ crucified. First, the waters in the pool of Bethesda are collected rainwater, and this reminds us that Christ is the Word made flesh, come down from heaven, for us men and for our salvation, as we say in the Creed. And as Venerable Fulton Sheen teaches us, Jesus came not to have life, but to give his life, not to live, but to die. Like the collected rainwaters in the pool, so Jesus came down from heaven to give his life for ours. Now the water in that pool is used by priests to wash the sheep which are going to be used for sacrifice. And here we find a double image of Christ, for Christ is both priest and lamb. He is the spotless lamb who is in no need of cleansing, but who is also the priest victim, who by giving up his life cleanses us now, washes us clean, not by simple water, but by his blood. So we could say that this water used by the priest is also a figure of Christ, and how in shedding his blood for us and sacrificing himself for us, he washes us clean from sin. And finally, the pool of Bethesda, we are told, has 5 porticoes. And as St. John Chrysostom points out, each of these porticoes, which granted more priests access to the cleansing waters, represents Jesus' 5 wounds, which grant us access to his saving blood. We find healing, and that is principally healing from the misery and hopelessness of sin by turning to Christ crucified. This is what John's Gospel wants to teach us today in the midst of Lent, It wants to mysteriously turn our minds and hearts to the great mystery of Christ crucified. Not only to turn our minds and hearts to Him, but to follow Him along the way of the cross. For just as Jesus told the ill man today to rise, take up his mat, and walk, so He calls us to rise today, to leave behind our sinfulness, to pick up the cross of fidelity, and walk with Him towards a newness of life. May God bless you.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed hearing the gospel and homily, I invite you to share it with someone you know who may also find it rewarding, and also to subscribe to the Catholic Voice channel. Please see in the description below if you would like to receive a text message for each daily gospel and homily. Please also keep our missionary priests throughout the world in your prayers. Thank you, and God bless.